When Rachel Reeves stepped into the interview, inflation had already started to come down, but it was beginning to creep back up. Still, she confidently claimed that living standards weren't just stable, but on the rise, and that they'd continue improving under her leadership. But what happens when a politician gets a little too comfortable? Did Rachel Reeves really think Trevor Phillips would go easy on her, especially on live television? With calm precision, he cut straight through her talking points, and what followed left her visibly rattled. Before diving into policy proposals, Phillips asked a simple yet critical question: what exactly is the problem Reeves believes she's solving? Has the economy worsened since she took office, or not? She avoided giving a direct answer, instead offering vague dissatisfaction with current growth figures. She admitted the economy wasn't growing fast enough and claimed it was impossible to reverse over a decade of stagnation in just a few months. Yet, she insisted progress was being made, despite data suggesting otherwise. Things took a sharp turn when Phillips pressed her on a term she repeatedly mentioned: the £22 billion black hole in public finances. Where did this number come from? And what did it really mean? The question was straightforward, but it hit hard. Reeves, who holds one of the most powerful economic roles in the UK, couldn't clearly explain the figure. She danced around the question, referencing future forecasts and insisting that changes were underway. But for a moment, the facade cracked. A number she had used to justify tough financial decisions suddenly seemed baseless. She tried to pivot, citing stability, interest rate cuts, and public finance improvements. According to her, the government had restored enough fiscal order to warrant optimism. But the more she spoke, the less convincing her case became. Rather than defending her position, Reeves contradicted herself and offered statements that didn't align with published data. What unfolded wasn't just a rough interview, it was a total unraveling. Phillips, with quiet determination, kept steering her back to facts. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't sensationalize. He simply held up her claims to the light, and slowly, the inconsistencies became undeniable. The interview's most revealing moments weren't loud or dramatic, they were subtle. At one point, Phillips cited the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, which predicted a sharp decline in living standards by the end of this parliamentary term. Reeves dismissed it outright. No discussion, no evidence to refute it, just rejection. It was a moment that spoke volumes. Was she really listening to independent research, or only to numbers that supported her narrative? As the pressure mounted, Reeves seemed less like a confident chancellor and more like someone struggling to maintain control of a crumbling message. Her reassurances, that wages were growing, that inflation was under control, fell flat in the face of stubborn economic realities. She spoke of returning stability and cutting interest rates, but Phillips was quick to point out that growth remained flat, inflation was sticky, and interest rates weren't falling. Even as Reeves insisted that the government had already begun to deliver a plan for economic change, the interview painted a different picture. Her words felt rehearsed, her optimism carefully manufactured. The cracks showed not just in what she said, but in how she said it. She backtracked. She doubled down. She blamed capital spending, then shifted focus again. It was like watching someone try to juggle too many balls at once, only to lose grip on all of them. Then came a more personal question: how much of the current economic state was her doing? She frequently blamed the previous government, but Phillips pointed out that many business leaders blamed her own pessimistic rhetoric for hurting confidence. Her autumn messaging, tax hikes, and a gloomy economic outlook may have discouraged investment. Did she overdo the doom and gloom? Once again, Reeves fell back on the familiar script. She repeated the claim about the £22 billion hole, which many experts dispute, calling it more of an accounting artifact than a real crisis. Throughout the interview, it became increasingly clear, this wasn't just a misstep. It was a glimpse into a larger issue. Reeves appeared out of touch with real data, overly reliant on forecasts, and unwilling, or unable, to explain key economic decisions. And while she called for national belt tightening, media reports surfaced showing her attending a VIP concert in full luxury, creating a stark contrast between her rhetoric and her reality. Even when Phillips asked a simple question about tax increases, specifically whether the upcoming national insurance hikes might harm the economy, Reeves deflected. She passed the responsibility to the Office of Budget Responsibility once again, dodging direct accountability. At one point, Phillips even joked that she had mentioned the OBR more times than any chancellor should in a single conversation. Who was running the country, the chancellor or the economists? Economists have also challenged Reeves's claims. Many argue that the so-called £22 billion gap isn't a fiscal emergency but rather a reflection of short-term accounting tactics. Critics say this crisis was designed to justify painful austerity measures that risk undermining economic growth and burdening ordinary families. By the end of the interview, viewers weren't just confused, they were concerned. Trevor Phillips had exposed a deeper problem. Labour promised a new kind of leadership, one based on transparency, competence, and fairness. But Reeves's performance told a different story, one of mixed messages, questionable statistics, and political spin. The public reaction was swift and skeptical. Many who hoped for change are beginning to see familiar patterns emerge, difficult decisions for the many, while the few remain comfortable. The credibility Reeves hoped to build may have just taken a major hit. In politics, trust is everything. And in that interview, it began to slip. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you found this breakdown insightful, give us a like and don't forget to subscribe for more sharp analysis. See you in the next one.